My transition personally to going to secondary from primary was quite a scary experience. I didn't know what it was going to be like.
The way I feel about going into secondary school is very excited but a bit nervous because I don't know what there is in store for me, but I've already made a friend there at the open evening.
During the transition phase from primary to secondary, my role was as a form tutor. So we have a formal event in the beginning of July where the students and their parents come in and they have a formal speech from Mr. Christou, the head teacher, and a formal speech from the head of year, Mr. Idanu.
And they come in for a day to meet their form tutor to get them used to the fact that they will be moving from lesson to lesson, which is a big change for the youngsters who come from primary school. And so they are given a tour of the school.
And then some fun activities and also getting to know each other in the school.
In September, the first day they came back, it was just them and no other students.
To help Year 6 children with the transition from primary to secondary, we try to prepare them throughout the whole year. Partly with the work that we give the children, we try to encourage them to be more independent workers.
When I went into Year 6, they were like, oh, here's an assembly about what it's going to be like at school. Oh, it's like a big fish in a small pond, and then when you turn into Year 7s, you'll be a small fish in a big pond. But like that didn't really help because I didn't really understand what was going on. Kids don't understand metaphors.
Well, we are lucky because we work with a multi-academy trust in which we're part of a team of schools working together. One of those is a secondary school. In Year 5, we start the process in which the children have masterclasses, which they take part in secondary school lessons in particular subjects, which was really good. So they spend a whole morning in a secondary school.
So primary school, I felt like I was very mature compared to the lower years and had a lot of experience, and then when we dived into secondary, felt like the bottom of the heap and that you didn't know that much really. So yeah, it's quite a scary experience for me.
So my experience with going to secondary straight from homeschool was kind of, I'll say abrupt in the most innocent. I did get a good bit of, help.
Were you not socially shy?
No, I was fine.
Well, it might be a bit like frightening at first because of all the other people and because it's so big, much bigger than like usual. I feel like I'm going to manage it.
I think there's still this feeling that, you know, the big kids are scary.
Where everything's changing, they have to suddenly they have to be in charge of their own food at lunchtime.
How to get to school and how to get home.
15 different teachers for different subjects. They have to find their way around a big, busy school.
I think my biggest concern is if I get bullied and if I don't fit in, because nobody might be there to help support me.
And yeah, it was just more of the unknowing that just caught me off guard, but I definitely enjoyed it. So.
But significant thing for some of them is dealing with their bag and being able to carry it and actually finding their way around. And for the youngsters, sometimes their bags are almost bigger than themselves.
I think there will be a nice environment, but there might be some older kids who might act a bit silly.
The thing that I feel like that they're most worried about going into secondary school is about workload. I think it's, you know, they struggle sometimes to adjust to or to learn skills here. So we try and train them to make sure that they understand the core skills that we teach here, so that they're well supported and they're well clued up for when they go to secondary school.
See, I wish the kids did understand that metaphor, because in my school anyway, you are so arrogant because you've been the big fish in the little pond, as you said, for so long, and you're not used to then being right down at the bottom. See, I've kind of come to peace with it. I used to think, oh, year 7s, they're getting worse every year, but I've come to realise that it's just a natural progression that you have to go through. You have to go through that phase of being arrogant and obnoxious. It's one of the things that you learn in school that isn't just the curriculum, you know? You agree, yeah? You've had this experience.
Are we including me now? Okay.
It's different being in secondary school because in year 6 we had a lot more responsibilities, so we had to be like role models to the younger students, and here we're just like the youngest students in the secondary school.
The difference between primary education and secondary education is, I guess, it could be controversial. A lot of it is about the relationships. The teachers are with the children most of the time through the week and the days, and then obviously through the year they are in year 6. They're aware of the children's needs and fears all the way through their learning process and their relationships with each other at the school and their peers.
Other concerns, I think, what students mainly have are friendships.
Well, for me, it was just going to primary school. I'm not going to lie, I was rude. I was rude because I was teased. And then I became the rude one. And some people know me from secondary school in Maymo. And yeah, I was bad.
I think the most difficult thing in preparing children for secondary school is trying to explain to them the difference between the size of the school.
It's a lot different, as like my primary school was one of the smallest in like the borough, and going from like a really big school is a lot different.
Fine. Well, my metaphor was different to you guys.
Feisty.
We were little eggs at the start of like sort of primary school, and we hatched and then grew, but it was sort of like I was in the desert in year 6.
The desert
No,
boy.
in primary
So
school.
you were an egg in the desert.
I was an egg in the desert. No. So there's like vultures.
Boy, I'm a vulture.
I would say we can improve the transition by possibly getting some kids from the secondary school down to the primary schools to possibly talk to them and give them advice beforehand, so they kind of get ready to it. So the more they see them, more they think, oh, they're just normal, they're just a little bit older, and they go to a different school.
Secondary school is this big mystery to a lot of children, and unfortunately where the education system's going is the children leave with their SATs results. That becomes their targets for secondary school, and the pressures of secondary school mean that they have to fulfil certain government criteria to make GCSE grades based on their leaving targets at primary, which puts a lot of pressure on the children and an enormous amount of pressure on the teachers to get them to where they need to get them. What's lost in that is that relationship between pupil and teacher. I think it's a shame. The pace of secondary school is totally different. The amount of teachers is totally different. Some are well liked by students, I guess, and some aren't, depending on the subject, and also how tired the secondary teachers are.
My primary school didn't do a bridge transition, so it didn't teach us anything about what you're going to encounter in secondary school, or how it's going to be, or like what to expect. We didn't do any of that, so it was even harder because we just went in secondary school like with zero knowledge of how it's going to be, and then we just had to face it on the first day. So it was kind of hard, but the transition worked after a while.
In my first school, they did used to run a summer school where the kids came in the first week of the summer and they did lots of fun sports and arts and crafts and drama and creative arts, and then went on lovely days out, and I think that was really good for them to bond so that they were close friendships before they joined the school.
In secondary school, they're a lot more harsh. I think the discipline is a lot more sort of targeted, and teachers might not have as much patience because they have, a whole load of other kids and year groups to worry about.
I think scattered lunches would be a good idea. Bring the lunches a bit earlier for the year 7s, and then have it scattered so they can have peace and quiet and then find their own spaces.
As in like reception, you were an egg, then you were born, and then you grew up to be a vulture, and then the little eggs who were the years below, you were preying on them, so you were the vultures in year 6. So you'd be like flying around trying to get them. And then when you went into secondary school, it's like you were reborn into an egg.
That's not how the circle of life goes. Have you never seen The Lion King?
No, I actually haven't.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, I think, because a lot of people from my past primary school came into the new secondary school. So I already had the friends, and I enjoyed it.
My transition was different to Hannah Mohammed's, because when we chose our schools, our teachers in our primary school actually got us into groups of the same school that we're going to, and they told us how it would be and stuff like that.
In my first day of secondary school, I was scared because I was afraid, like, oh my God, I wouldn't get many friends and stuff like that. But when I meet the others, I make new friends, and now it's not that difficult.
I found it quite hard at first to make new friends. I think some people, they came with their friends all set, so it was fine. Or they just some people were too eager to make new friends. They kind of made friends the wrong sort. So it kind of, I think it was worth waiting off, because now I've got good friends.
And we actually had a tour of our school, and we had some like classes as well, like they would teach us how it would be in secondary school. So it comes with some sort of experience.
It's sort of like not exactly, but we become the eggs again, and then the year 11s are the vultures.